Welcome back to another episode of Diamond Podcast. I'm your host, local realtor, local entrepreneur, community advocate, Alfredo Diamond. Welcome to our show and happy Friday. I've got a special guest here today, and I see his company's name everywhere. I see his name everywhere, and just excited to get to know him and get his story. And I want to welcome owner Bolt Media Company, Tyler Moore. Welcome to the show, Tyler.
Thank you, Alfredo. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, taking time out of your day.
Yeah.
So, Tyler, I just want to kind of get to know you first. Kind of talk about, I want to know, where are you from? What was your upbringing like? So if you can kind of talk about that, we'll just kind of go down the path of where you are now.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in a really small town called College Corner, in between Liberty and Oxford on 27.
Yeah.
So I grew up in College Corner, Union County College Corner Joint School District. And so I grew up in a pretty rural community.
Okay.
And from there, I attended Miami University. My dad works for Miami University as actually a locksmith.
Okay. Wow.
It's kind of a unique trade.
Yeah.
So I grew up there and attended Miami, studied business. And so that's a little bit of my background just about where I'm from. I also, my mom is a nurse. She works for McCullough Hyde. So grew up with kind of a household where my mom would be at college studying for nursing, and my dad was kind of out and about. He also had his own locksmith business that he did on the side. So a lot of just hardworking family.
Yeah. So I kind of piece it together now. So what kind of, was it your father that kind of inspired you to go into business, go to school for business? I mean, what inspired you to go down that path?
Yeah, so my dad always, it's interesting you asked that, because my dad always had the locksmith business as a side hustle. He works full-time for Miami University as the locksmith there for the university. And his dream had always been, for years, was opening like a storefront, locksmith business. And then that dream changed over time, and that no longer was the dream. But growing up, that seemed to me like a really cool thing.
Yeah.
Owning your own business, seeing my dad working, it inspired me probably more than I realized to do what I'm doing today. So, and that's why I studied business as well, because I always had a passion for arts, but I didn't know exactly what art, to be honest. And so I thought business was what made the most sense at the time. So, yeah.
So you look at your childhood, was there any things that you picked up, or were you a kid always maybe acting like you're a news cameraman, or what was that like?
That's really funny. Yeah. So I actually a friend of mine, we actually made, like, growing up in a rural community, almost everybody hunts or fishes or something like that, and we my family did that. We were outdoor people, but with one of my friends, we would do our own hunting videos. Yeah. Even though we weren't successful. And then in Union County, we had what was called Patriot News in middle school. So I was in Patriot News. I was involved in that. So I had a little bit of the media aspect of that. But while my brother attended Miami University for a couple years, and he was studying, I think, maybe photography. I can't remember, but he was interested in photography. And he had bought a newer Canon camera, and he was going through college, and I was at home, and he would tell me, do not touch this camera. But when he was gone, I would pick it up and I would mess around with it. And so that was probably, I always had an interest in photography.
Okay.
Even though little does he know, he wouldn't know until he watched this, that I picked up that camera, and messed around with it just because I had an interest in it. And when you're younger and you're told not to do something, it kind of triggers.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and see what this is about.
Yeah, exactly. So
is it your younger brother or older brother?
Older brother.
Oh, so your older brother really is kind of like the one that put the camera in your hand. That was your first.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that was the first experience having a camera in my hand. I mean, more so probably the Patriot News when I was in middle school.
Yeah.
So yeah, just always had an interest in photography and videography, and yeah, that's kind of how that interest sparked.
So, getting into where we're getting close to where your business now. But I want to know, like, so I'm stalking your LinkedIn page a little bit,
Okay.
and just kind of get a feel, and get to know you a little bit better for today.
Yeah.
And you've had a few. You kind of remind me of myself. You had some. I can see where you had a few opportunities, a couple opportunities prior to starting your own business. I mean, how did that transpire? Where you're like, one day, man, I've got this experience. I feel like I can do this. What turned you on to wanting to have your own business?
Yeah, so it's really kind of a non-traditional path. I did study business in school, but I didn't know, like I said, I always had an entrepreneurial spirit, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And my dad had the interest in locksmith and he's a locksmith and wanted to have, a storefront and stuff, but that was never something that interested myself or my brother really.
Yeah.
So that wasn't the path, but I knew there was something. And, it was really interesting how things transpired for me, because while I was studying business, I was a teller at Fifth Third Bank.
Oh, okay.
And so I worked there in Oxford. I graduated from Miami in 2013, became a banker, was promoted and worked full time. And this was right in the time period of when my wife and I were getting married. And so I was promoted, became a banker. I worked for Fifth Third for like 7 years. But while I was at Fifth Third, we were attending a pretty large church down outside of Cincinnati, and I was getting more and more involved. And I always had this like feeling or this call, I felt like, to ministry.
Wow.
So I grew up in a small church in the town I grew up in, and I served there. But while we were going to that church, I really felt this pull to work there. I was really, really interested in working for this church. And so I went through, they actually had a small Bible college that I actually went through. And so I went through this Bible college, and after I finished it, it was just a short 2 years is what it took to go through the Bible college. I had an opportunity to work for that church, and it was a 2-role kind of opportunity. I was the small groups director.
Yeah. Okay.
Traditional work for a nonprofit. Sometimes, you're going to wear multiple hats.
Yeah.
So I was the small groups director, and I was the video director, which is those are two completely different things, right?
Yeah.
So, so I started working there. I had the opportunity, and I just took it. I felt like, okay, this is the door I was supposed to walk through. So I put my notice in the banking world. I went and I worked in ministry, and I thought video was going to be a really small part of what I did when I worked there. I thought it was going to be more small groups minded. And as I worked there, I just fell in love with photo and video. That spark, that interest I had at a young age was reignited and really turned into a full-blown just passion.
Yeah.
So much so that there was an individual that went to that church that the church actually paid to train me. They paid him to train me, and he has worked, his name was Dave. He worked on multiple high-level, full feature films.
Wow.
So he'd worked with actors like Bruce Willis, Mel Gibson.
Wow. Incredible.
A lot of really big names, right? And so his training, what he taught me in just a matter of a few short weeks, changed my life.
Wow.
It was life-changing. And so I was really, really fortunate to have that connection, to, work in that church environment and then have a connection to somebody that could teach me what they could teach me. That's something I don't think I could have ever learned in school. So that was really awesome. So while I worked there for about 2.5 years. And as I was becoming more and more passionate about video production and filmmaking, I started to have little side jobs that would just kind of pop up. And I had the opportunity to freelance a little bit.
Yeah.
And I worked in the ministry environment for 2.5 years through COVID. And, as you know, during COVID in the church world, video was the primary method for churches to communicate with their congregation. So my job just exploded during that window of time. So from there, that was really how things kind of took shape for me. I started to freelance while I worked there. And then after that, I felt like I had enough side jobs or enough freelancing opportunities that the door was kind of opening for me to start this business, and the door was kind of shutting on the season of working at the church. And it's really interesting because when I took the job, I want to be really clear about this. When I took the job at Church on Fire, the name of the church, I never imagined in a million years that, I'm coming to this job to learn film and video so that I can go start my business.
Yeah.
I was passionate about working for the church. That was honestly, I was pulled to work in ministry because that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, I'm going to go learn for 2 years and leave. It was really it was a completely transformative experience for me of working in ministry, and the first time really having autonomy of my schedule, having the ability to network and learn from people. It just was life-changing.
So you're learning you're getting these experiences, and people are following your lap, your in your life, experiences, and you're just taking these little nuggets away, and that's eventually going to transpire into where you are now. So I want to unpack a couple of things there. So you're like first, what is the number one lesson that you learned from? Was it David? What is the biggest impact that he made on you?
Gosh, and I still am very connected with Dave. He taught me how important the moment, like when you capture an image, when you take a picture, when you are shooting video like we are today, it's honestly like magic. And what I mean is like the ability for us to freeze a moment in time, for us to be able to record this today and for somebody else to be able to watch it later is a technological advance that civilizations never experienced until the last, I don't know how many years, 100 years, right? It's honestly, it's such a, it's almost a miracle that we're able to do it. So he taught me he's who helped me become passionate about photography, because we can literally freeze a moment or an image forever with this technology. I mean, that's so special. Yeah. That's so amazing. I think we can take it for granted, right? Yeah. Because we know we have screens in front of us everywhere. And so that really, really stuck out to me. That's probably the number one thing. He was so passionate about film. Yeah, I mean, this dude, he was just on another level. He still is. I mean, he had studied at Berkeley. He actually is a music composer. He scores a lot of films. Really, really talented guy. And he was really intense. Honestly, day one, he like slammed the door, not slammed. He shut the door really stern and was like, all right, I want you to get your notepad out. I'm going to give you a lot of information. I want you to learn it quickly.
Take notes,
And he just was very direct. And that's my personality type. I love it when somebody's direct with me.
Oh, he was just all business.
So he was very direct, very good teacher. And he didn't waste any time in the words he had to say. Yeah. So,
That's amazing. So I want to talk about, real quick, and then we'll move on, but you're like the fourth or fifth guest where it's like, they talked about being like basically at the right place and right time, and being pulled by, your spiritual or something telling you to make this move. I mean, can you touch on that a little bit?
Totally. And actually, I was thinking about it as we were.
I didn't want to let that go by. So that's.
Yeah. So literally, it's just funny. Proverbs, I love Proverbs 16. Proverbs 16:9 says, we can make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps. So we can make plans. So I had these plans to go work in the church, to go work in ministry. I didn't have an end goal in mind. I didn't know what the future. I didn't have a direct plan of like, well, I'm going to leave in this many years or whatever. I had no idea. And you don't know how you're being prepared today for something in the future you have no idea about. So like that's for me. We can make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps, and He put me in that place at that time for us to learn, or for me to learn what I did. And then it was like a launching pad.
Yeah.
It was an absolute launching pad for my life, for my career, for my family, honestly. Like, and now I feel like based off that experience, I'm able to serve people and serve organizations at a level that I never would have been able to with just the business degree or just the experience at Fifth Third. I had that opportunity to work in ministry for a reason.
Yeah.
It helped me become who I am today. So, yeah.
So when you think about transitioning up to your business, I mean, you had all the tools. You had a great mentor, still do. You learned a lot from banking, how to manage your finances and things like that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So when you talk about your going into your business, did you have a business plan going out? I mean, what did that look like?
Yeah. So when I left the church, I had a couple contracts in place. So I had a client that had a recurring monthly contract for, I think I had 6 months on it. And then I had another 6-month contract with a studio in Harrison, Ohio.
So contracts are huge in your world.
They are.
Okay.
They are, especially to get started. So it was the way for me to guarantee that I could do this. I could make sure I had enough to provide for my family while I was trying to build my book of business.
Yeah.
So I worked for another guy that I really learned a ton from. His name's Brayton. He owns Iron House Studios in Harrison. And I worked for him for almost a year as a freelancer. It was actually more like 8 months. So he...
This is one of your clients?
No. So he owns a studio that I freelanced at.
Okay.
So I was working with him when I started my business. I was still giving like 15 to 20 hours a week of my time to that studio. So that's something I should point out. So when I left it was late May, early June of 2021 is when I left, and I had a contract with one of my clients, and then I had a contract with a studio to freelance and help them with their client work. So I was doing editing, filming for this studio, and then I was also working with my own clients.
Gotcha.
So what I did was I was able to, with those two contracts, that gave me the ability to leave, to start this, and I was only with the studio for 15, 20 hours a week. Those other hours, I was building my own book of business. I was networking. I was making connections. I should point out, I immediately, for anybody that's trying to start a small business, I immediately got connected with the chamber in my area. Yeah. Well, I got connected with the Wayne County Chamber. I got connected with the Oxford, Ohio Chamber for a few years. And I started to meet other business owners.
Yeah.
And that's you ask those questions to other business owners about how they got started and their best practices. And, you learn from them because they are where you want to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
reinvent the wheels, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm on the chamber and I advocate, people are like, well, why do I want to pay this fee or what? You've got to get involved.
Yes.
You can't just pay the fee and then you've got to get out and network and get involved in committees.
Yeah.
And the power is in that. We're all together, buying local and supporting each other. That's what it's about. I mean,
right.
No one's going to know if you're not out there voicing you're advocating for your own business.
Right. Well, yeah, that's just it. No one, you can advertise, you can put billboards up, you can do all the SEO stuff, which I think, quite frankly, is dead. I think as far as SEO, that's not even as relevant as it used to be.
Word of mouth.
Yeah, I think the word of mouth has really been the primary thing of how I've become more and more successful. And, I don't take that lightly, honestly, because I really value the relationships that I have formed with people, because that's what at Bolt Media Company, the phrase that we've used is video marketing made simple. I mean, I think for a lot of business owners, they don't necessarily understand. They don't necessarily understand the video and photo side of things, and that's complicated. Well, and not just that, like how powerful of a tool it is. Number one, but number two, even if they do understand how powerful it is, how to embrace it properly for their business and how to actually utilize it and get a return on investment from video. I think that we say video marketing made simple is what the phrase I like to use.
Video marketing made simple.
Yeah. So we're trying to make that simple for businesses and organizations because it's complicated.
Yeah.
And we make it simple.
I love that. So for my next question, where are you located now?
So we have a studio here in Richmond on 2nd Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. On 2nd Street.
Yeah.
So you talk about, so what is it like? So I'm a new customer. You've got a referral. Someone referred me to you. We're sitting down. What is my experience like from start to finish? You find out what I'm wanting. What does that process look like?
So for my brand new customer,
Yeah.
so a lot of times it's, a customer already has something in mind that they want to create. Hey, I have this video idea, or I have these photos that I need. So typically we want to ask more and more questions to really understand the why. So the main things I ask are, well, who's your target audience? What's your main objective with this video? What's the most important thing or outcome that you receive from this video when it's completed? Those are really the questions that I ask. And we use a creative brief template to kind of walk through that process. So we just have a standardized process for every customer with a list of questions of, this is how what our methods are, and this is how we kind of uncover what they actually need. So yeah, I don't know if that's directly answers.
So it's more of a consultative approach.
It really is a consultative approach. It's kind of hard to, it's a little different than like your normal shopping experience.
Yeah.
It's more of, well, we need to figure out the why.
Yeah.
And then I like to really understand the why behind the organization. I think that's what makes us different, is that we really want to understand the vision and mission and values of every organization we work with. If we know those things, the types of videos you need become very clear. And those, we can help you meet those objectives when we know that information. So
what's a win? It's like a moment you're very just like proud of, like, man, these guys really didn't know what they wanted.
Yeah.
I sat down with them, and then look where this marketing plan. So, can you share?
yeah, well, sure. Yeah, there was it's actually been 2 years ago. We worked with Abilities here in Richmond, and we did a brand video for them. And that video went somewhat viral because, for me, I'm from Liberty.
Yeah.
I didn't even, until I met Tammy and her staff, I didn't have any idea really what Abilities was. I didn't even know it really existed. And we were able to create a video that was really, it cut to the core of the why behind Abilities and the passion that Tammy has. That was really special. That's a moment that I look back at that video still, even though it's 2 years old, and I really am really proud of that. We were able to really communicate their heart through video in 3 minutes. And that's the goal, is that with a brand video specifically, we want to communicate that vision, that mission, that excitement that the business owner has or organization leader. That's the thing, is like, most business owners or organizational leaders, are pretty energetic people to a degree.
Motivated. Yeah.
They're very motivated.
Yeah.
And we need to find a way to communicate that through video and make it clear. Yeah.
That separates you apart. So when you think about your business and where you are right now, what has been the biggest challenge for you, and how'd you overcome it? Was there any challenges?
I think, there's challenges every day, every week, right? Like, a lot of people will look at like, wow, you quit your job.
So scary, man.
That sounds so scary, right? And that was one leap. But what I would tell you is, if you're going to take the leap to start your own business, it's just a series of more and more leaps.
Yeah.
Then it's hiring somebody.
Yeah.
Then it's renting a studio. Then it's buying that next piece of equipment. It's, whatever the next step is for growth, there's another leap right in front of you. So it's a series. It's not one, a lot of people look at starting your own business and quitting your job as one big leap. It's just, that's the first one.
Yeah.
And then there's a series of so many more leaps, and I'm still making them today.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm even like, our staff is growing, and, we're growing as an organization, which is awesome. But you have to really evaluate where you are.
Yeah.
And then decide, okay, is it time to make another jump, or even if it's just a step, maybe it's not a full blown jump. Every business is moving in one direction, you're either stepping back or you're stepping forward. I don't think you can really stand still in the business world. So we're trying to, continue to step forward and jump forward and help, as we grow, we're helping our clients grow.
Yeah.
That's the main thing, is that when our clients are successful, then we're successful.
Yeah.
It's a win-win.
Yeah.
So,
man, that fear we kind of touched on, that is really what inspired the show. My fear of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And just kind of getting at people's stories like yours. It's been a pleasure to have you here. But when you talk about, your business and growing your business, one of the things that I ask other entrepreneurs is, man, you see your business, you're supporting it. People think you make all this money and you go and spend it or whatever. But a smart person is going to put it back in their business.
Wow.
So when you get to that point where you're like, man, I really got to bring on somebody. And when you make that decision, I want to make sure I can sustain them being here.
Yes.
I'm committed to it. How did you get to that point?
Well, it was really difficult. Honestly, I struggled with it for too long, to be totally honest. I probably should have hired a full-time employee sooner.
Yeah.
But it was fear that kind of kept me in that same place. So, again, it's something that I think every entrepreneur just has to continually work through. You have to continually evaluate your position. Really just be honest with yourself. This is where I'm at. This is where we're at. And what I mean is, I think some entrepreneurs, myself at least, I can be a little too skeptical, a little too reserved, because, you hear there's always someone in your circle or around you that's going to tell you the sky is falling. Oh, there's a recession coming, or there's, bad things are happening in the economy, or they're going to happen, right? You hear these things. There's always going to be somebody that's telling you the sky is falling.
Yeah.
You have to be able to block that out.
Yeah.
You're a business owner. You're an entrepreneur. You don't have time for those thoughts.
Right.
That's something that you have to put so far away.
Right.
Now, you need to also have the reality that, yes, things can change.
Yeah.
And you need to be prepared.
To pivot, yeah.
But more importantly, for you to have your sanity, you need to be positive.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I have really had to work on, and I'm still working on it even today. Every business has some sort of obstacle or something that happens week to week that you got to pivot and evaluate. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's easy to really look at those potential bad things and not move and not make any decision when, in reality, hey, actually, we're doing okay. We're going to keep going forward, and we're going to believe that things are going to continue to work out. And that's the other thing for me, that's the faith element. I'm like, okay, if God brought me this far, I'm not gonna, he's not gonna just say, oh, well, now we're, done, whatever. So that's where faith comes in for me.
I love that about you, man.
Yeah.
You're well grounded, very humble, and the sky is the limit for you. And
thanks.
Man, in closing, is there one person out there or a group or whoever that you want to get a shout out to, or someone you want to collaborate with that you haven't had been able to touch? I mean, who would it be? Who would you want to shout out today?
Here in Wayne County,
wherever.
Wow. Well, I mean, I guess I would just say, a huge thank you to the people that I mentioned earlier. And, I wouldn't be able to be where I am without those individuals that helped me along the way. I'd like to, here's a good shout out. A shout out to the Wayne County Chamber.
Wow.
Because, with their, with working, networking with people inside the chamber. Yeah. I mean, it really, I would just really advocate to other entrepreneurs, other business owners, that being a part of the chamber, it's worth that fee, or the membership cost. It's really worth it. And it's only really worth it if you take advantage of the events and things that take place in there. So So yeah, that's definitely a shout out I'd make is to the chamber.
Wow.
So
There you have it.
yeah.
Tyler, it's been a pleasure having you here, man. I wish you nothing but continued success, and I hope we continue to grow our relationship.
Same.
And I thank you enough for being here, man. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Diamond Podcast. We'll see you on the next episode.
1, 2.